As life goes on, the relationship with our children slowly changes. As life goes on, the relationship we have with our children, those who were once our little ones, slowly begins to shift. We gave them our years, sleepless nights, endless sacrifices, and raised them with all our love. But then one day you notice, they no longer take you seriously. Your words don't carry the same weight. They don't truly listen. And the most painful part, sometimes they treat you in a way that you start to feel like a burden. This silent fracture leaves a deep mark in the hearts of many elderly parents. Deep inside, you ask yourself, where did I go wrong? But the truth is, this loss of respect is often not your fault. However, regaining it is in your hands. Today, I'm going to share 6 powerful steps you can take to earn back your children's respect. These are strategies that don't involve arguing. That won't create resentment, but that will quietly and effectively restore your place as someone who deserves to be respected. Some of them may surprise you, but by the end of this video, you'll better understand why your children may no longer see you as they once did. And most importantly, how to rebuild that bond. If you're ready, let's begin. 1. Stop trying to earn their approval. As we grow older, many parents, often unknowingly, begin to seek their children's approval. You say, as long as they're happy, that's enough for me. You put your own wants aside, always the first to show up when you need something. But the painful truth is this: the more you give, the more you stay silent, the more you say yes to everything, the less respect you receive. Because respect doesn't begin with constant sacrifice. It begins with the value you place on yourself. I once knew a woman with a very strong personality. She had spent her whole life standing on her own feet, fighting for her family. But once her children grew up and started their own lives, she quietly chose to fade into the background. She said yes to everything they asked, canceled her own plans, and did things she didn't even want to, just to keep the peace. Over time, her children began to see her boundaries as blurred. They interrupted her, dismissed her decisions, even overlooked her completely, because she was no longer seen as the strong mother, but as someone who always quietly agreed. The biggest step you can take at this point is to first return to yourself so your children can take you seriously again. Set your own boundaries. Learn to say no when necessary. And remember, staying silent doesn't bring peace. It turns you into someone who can be ignored. So if you feel like you're no longer receiving the respect you deserve from your children, ask yourself, do I truly respect my own ideas, needs, and boundaries? Because the more you respect yourself, the more they'll be forced to respect you too. 2. Stop arguing, be an example. When your children don't show you respect, the first reaction is often to argue. I'm your mother. I'm your father. I raised you all these years. And you're right. But most of the time, these words don't have the impact you hope for, because respect is not earned through words, but through presence and example. If every conversation with your children turns into an argument, if they constantly interrupt you, belittle you, or simply don't listen to what you say, stop. And instead of trying to explain, try to demonstrate. It's easy to respond with anger when they treat you harshly, but that only raises tensions. It creates conflict, and no matter what you say, it won't be truly heard. Instead, there is a quiet power, a respectful yet firm stance, knowing how to set boundaries without lowering yourself. This doesn't happen by yelling, but through eye contact, clear sentences, and a steady tone. I don't want you to speak to me in that tone. If you want to talk about this respectfully, I'm here to listen. Statements like these are calm, yet powerful messages. Remember, your children mirror your behavior. If you respond to disrespect with anger, helplessness, or silence, it becomes a pattern for them. But if you respond with maturity, clarity, and self-respect, they will begin to follow your example. I once knew a man who had retired from teaching. At home, his children often treated him rudely and mockingly. At first, he would get angry, argue, and raise his voice. But then he realized this approach wasn't working. One day, he quietly changed his attitude. He remained calm, spoke in short but firm sentences, and started setting boundaries. He chose not to argue, but to lead by example. And slowly, the way his children looked at him began to change, because he was no longer someone who demanded respect. He became someone who was naturally respected. So let me ask you, are you trying to move forward by arguing, or by setting an example with your actions? 3. Pull back your emotional dependency. As we grow older, our bond with our children becomes even more precious. But sometimes, without realizing it, that bond can turn into dependency. If you're constantly calling them, if you find yourself wondering throughout the day whether they've thought of you, if your heart tightens every time you stare at a silent phone screen, waiting for a message, then emotional dependency may have quietly taken hold. This kind of dependency doesn't just hurt you. It slowly damages your relationship with your children as well. Because people, whether they are your children or anyone else, tend to pull away from those who place emotional burdens on them. The love you feel for them is, of course, endless. But if that love only feels real when they call you, if it survives only on a thank you or a little attention, then it's no longer a healthy kind of love. I once knew a woman named Helen. Her children were her whole world. But as they grew older and their lives became busier, Helen was always the one calling. She constantly said how much she missed them. She asked why they didn't call. And after every conversation, she felt even more drained and hurt. Then one day, she stopped. She stopped calling. She started gardening, meeting with friends, and joined a book club. And guess what happened? Her children started calling her. Because now they weren't calling a woman who always spoke from a place of longing. They were calling a mother who had her own life, who is strong and full of joy. Love grows from mutual admiration. And admiration is not born out of dependency. It's born out of independence. If you feel like you're not getting the attention you long for from your children, ask yourself this: am I happy even without them around? If you can answer with a strong yes, then you've already started earning their respect again. 4. Set boundaries and enforce them. Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who push our boundaries the hardest, especially our children. Without you even realizing it, their tone may have gotten harsher. You might start hearing more dismissive comments about your thoughts. Or they might act as if you're not even there, even when you are. At this point, it's crucial to remember: people, including your children, treat you the way you allow them to. If you let them speak disrespectfully, it becomes a habit. If you stay silent when they disregard your feelings, that silence becomes the new normal. Boundaries are not walls. In fact, they are the invisible lines that protect relationships. Healthy love grows within those lines. I remember a father, his name was Robert. He spent most of his life as a company executive. Disciplined, strong, logical. But when it came to his children, he found himself growing quiet, letting things slide. To him, as long as there's no conflict in the family, it's fine. But silence didn't bring peace. The disrespect grew louder. One day, he made a decision. When his son interrupted him, he looked him in the eye and said, "I'll continue speaking when you're ready to listen." And he stopped. He told his daughter with the same calm yet firm tone, "You don't have to agree with me, that you do have to be respectful." At first, the children protested, but over time, they began to change. Because now they were facing a father who drew boundaries, a man who knew his worth. Remember this: respect requires clarity. If you don't define where your boundaries begin, no one else will. If this part of the video spoke to you, leave a 4 in the comments to let us know you're with us. Sometimes, a small comment can inspire thousands. 5. Stop giving without receiving. Throughout life, being generous to the ones we love, putting ourselves second for their well-being. These are some of the deepest instincts that make us parents. But when this beautiful intention becomes unbalanced, it can slowly turn into a trap, one that exhausts you, wears you down, and even makes you feel invisible. There's a quiet cycle many aging parents fall into. They keep giving, but don't even receive a simple "thank you" in return. Mom will take care of it, Dad will handle it. Your kindness starts to look more like a duty over time. I once met a father. His name was George. For years, whenever his children were in trouble, he was the first they called. Financial help, giving them rides, babysitting the grandkids. He would jump in without hesitation. But as time passed, George began to realize something. His own needs were being overlooked. One day, when he got sick, he saw his children use the excuse, "We're too busy," to avoid visiting him. A quiet sadness crept in, a moment of reflection. I was always there for them, but now I'm alone. That was when George made a decision. He would no longer offer help unless it was truly needed. He would be brave enough to say no when he had to. At first, his children were surprised, even upset. But slowly, something changed. They began to see the real value of what George had always given. Because remember this: a hand that gives constantly, without appreciation, eventually becomes just a habit. But help that's offered with boundaries earns real gratitude. Take a moment to ask yourself, am I truly appreciated or just expected? If the answer leaves you feeling hurt, maybe it's time to pull back a little, to say no when it matters, and to make room for the love you truly deserve. 6. Build a life outside of them. We spend a huge part of our lives centered around our children. They grow up, start school, get married, and build lives of their own. And at some point, we realize we've built our entire identity around them. If they're happy, we're happy. When they call, our day lights up. But when the silence lingers, a subtle ache begins to stir inside our hearts. Have they forgotten me? We quietly ask ourselves. Of course, this is love, but it can also become a dependency. And sadly, that dependency doesn't foster respect, it fosters expectation. When expectations aren't met, disappointment follows. And those disappointments slowly turn into quiet loneliness. But we must remember this: life isn't just about our children. We need a world of our own. A space where we build our own happiness, excitement, and sense of purpose. I once met a woman named Lena. Her husband had passed away years earlier, and she devoted her entire life to her children. She called them every day, made plans, lived entirely through their lives. Until one day, one of her children said, "Mom, live your own life now. We love you, but your happiness shouldn't depend on us." Those words struck Lena deeply. At first, she was hurt, but then she made a decision. She finally enrolled in the art class she'd always dreamed of. She began morning walks, joined a volunteer program. She slowly rebuilt her little world. And over time, her children noticed. Lena's conversations changed. Her voice sounded more vibrant on the phone because now she had things to share. And maybe for the first time, her children looked at her with admiration. This is where true respect is born. People who love themselves, who live their own lives, always earn the respect of those around them. Dear friend, ask yourself, is my world only tied to theirs? If so, maybe now is the time to build a life that belongs to you. Make new friends, explore your interests, learn to find peace without placing it on others. Because you are not just a mother or a father. You are a whole person with a soul, a dream, and a life of your own. And don't forget, children respect a parent most, who is truly living their own life. Final thoughts. Respect is gained over time and grows quietly. Sometimes that silent question echoes inside us. Where did I go wrong? For years, we tried to do our very best for our children, sacrificing our sleep, our dreams, just to see them smile. And now, as they've grown and gone their own way, sometimes all that's left behind is silence. But as we've seen together in this video, respect isn't about what we gave in the past. It's about how we stand today. When we learn to stand on our own feet, when we draw clear boundaries, when we begin to guide our lives again, that's when true respect quietly knocks at our door. Remember, my dear friends, respect is not begged for, it's earned by our presence. And this is possible at any age. If the things I've shared today touched your heart, if you saw a piece of yourself in this video, please leave one sentence in the comments. I'm reclaiming my respect. Because sometimes the most powerful step is taken in silence. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because we'll continue creating content here that speaks to your soul. In the next video, at another stop along life's journey, I hope we'll meet again. Take care of yourself, and never forget, you are worthy, always.